Little Tales of an Artist, a Basket, and Two Naughty Bunnies. Welcome to Let's Get Foxy. This is Lacey, your host, and I hope that you're doing very well today. So, we are going to continue the Beatrix Potter Little Tales series, and our next story is The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. This is the second story that she published, so this is the one directly after Peter Rabbit. And just to recap about our author Beatrix Potter, she was, if you listen to the Peter Rabbit episode, if not, I recommend going back and listening. But she was many things. She was quite the inspirational woman. She was an entrepreneur, an artist, a writer, a gardener, a scientist, farmer, and preservationist. I wish I had that kind of energy, to be perfectly honest. But she was an amazing woman for the time. And so, just to recap, she was born back in 1866, and then she did all of those accomplishments. Again, that is huge by today's standards, and absolutely astronomical by the standards of the late 1800s, early 1900s. So, like many children from that era, she was educated by governesses, and she genuinely enjoyed learning about languages and literature, and she especially was fond of folk and fairy tales, riddles, and rhymes. It just helped her imagination to grow. They helped inspire her. They were fun. And today's episode, when we talk about her, we're going to focus on the artist, because she was a phenomenal artist. Her artistic talent was actually discovered at a very early age, and they encouraged it. I mean, back then, a woman had to be accomplished and be well-rounded, but she had a true artistic talent, and so they helped encourage it. And she thrived with that encouragement. She drew everything. She did mainly focus on drawing like wildlife and the world around her because it was beautiful. It was what inspired her the most. But I'm sure you didn't know this, or if you did, let me know. But she actually drew her own versions of children's stories. Like she drew Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. How cool would that be to be able to put what you are imagining as you are reading those stories to paper? Okay, I have no artistic talent, so for me, that would be quite liberating if I could do that. And so I thought that was really cool that she did it. She also, when she was focusing on the world around her, she drew their pets, and if you remember, they had bunnies, they had rabbits. And she drew the schoolroom animals. So she did the rabbits, a hedgehog, mice, bats, and insect collections. She also made watercolors of landscapes and places, the wildlife, flowers, and fungi. It's very important to note the fungi because that's going to come back again later. So, we are going to speed forward into her life because, she's an artist, she's writing her stories. Well, she meets William Heelis. And if you don't know who he is her husband. And before they got married, and even, after, he was working as a solicitor. Now, I'd read a lot of books as a child, and I thought that a solicitor was like a paralegal. I am here in case anyone else made that grievous mistake to correct it, because childhood me was very wrong, because I was like, a solicitor is like a paralegal that works with the lawyer, because I knew that barristers was the title of lawyers in the UK. Well, a solicitor is much cooler than a paralegal. Sorry to all of my paralegals out there, you guys do a lot of hard work, and you guys are amazing. But you're just not quite on the same level as a solicitor. So what a solicitor is they are a legal professional across the pond. They are not to be confused with being a lawyer or a barrister, as I'd already established. So what they did is they managed wills, property title deeds, inheritance, and divorce. So they managed mainly daily legal needs. So they would actually go to people's homes and help get things established or meet with people in their offices. Now, barristers, on the other hand, they represented people in court, so they are very important, very huge distinction. So in the past, solicitors were very well respected in the gentry, but they were considered lower class than the barristers, and the barristers made sure that people knew it. And something that I thought was really cool is that it's still a profession today, and it's much needed. If you recall, they're helping people with their wills, their property titles, inheritance, divorce, and I'm kind of wondering why we don't have something that's similar over here in the United States. It could help a lot of people. Like, I know I used to work in banking at one time, and I cannot tell you how many people would come in and they would be like, I need to set things up so that my family doesn't have to go through probate. If you've never dealt with probate, consider yourself lucky, but it's probably coming. Because a lot of people, they put together their wills and everything, and they think, oh, that's going to settle everything. Or, they're like, I don't have anything to leave for my family, so I'm not even going to do a will. And then when they pass on, you have to go through this long, drawn out process, and it's kind of heart wrenching. And so, what a solicitor could do over here is they could help streamline the process and make it easier. I think that would be very beneficial for people. I probably won't get a movement going with this, but just so the world knows, I'm wondering why we don't have that kind of an option here in the United States. Or maybe it's just something that we don't see here on the West Coast. Let me know. So, what William Heelis did, one of the really cool things that he did, was he actually introduced Beatrix Potter to the Armet Library. Now, the Armet Library is now known as the Armet Museum and Library, and it's located in Ambleside. I just thought that was something that needed to be clarified, because if someone's like, oh, she keeps talking about the Armet Library, doesn't she know that it's a museum? Yes, I do. I did the research, I did look it up. And so, what was really cool about this was William Heelis. He was an early trustee. They were getting everything going for it. And what the Armet Library was focusing on is they wanted to focus on local history, art, and literature. They made beautiful collections of the local culture. And so this focus on local history and culture is why Beatrix Potter felt this was the best place to exhibit her watercolors, like her fungi, her mosses, microscopic studies, and Roman artifacts. Didn't know that she drew and painted all that, did ya? She was incredible. She had her works there for many years, and then she actually bequeathed them to the Armet before she died. And then at the time, she also donated books. So at the time of her passing, she actually donated parts of her own personal library. Some of these books were rare. The books that I'm going to tell you that she donated, because I thought it was cool, was she actually did her own personal copies of the first editions of her little books. Those are treasures, guys. And she made sure that the world could still appreciate them by leaving them to the library. That's really cool. Not everybody does that. So, are you interested in seeing some of her watercolors? Because I got to look at some of them online, and they're beautiful. I mean, if you've read any of her little tales, you've seen how much life she brings to her characters there. But I mean, like, her natural watercolors, because she's referred to as a naturalist because she was so hyper attentive to detail for these things in nature, and it's amazing to see. Like, when you go and you look at it, you feel transported, or that you're actually looking at a real mushroom that's in front of you, or another fungus, something, moss. It's right there with you. And so, the reason why I bring this up is the Beatrix Potter Society has some of her artworks available to see on their website. You can also order some things from them because they apparently make postcards and things, like if you were in love with her artwork. I am not partnered with them in any way. I just thought it was a cool thing that they did. I personally was a big fan of her Rose and the Mouse, if you go look. Another place that you can go to look at her works is the Armet Museum and Library website. They have some of her fungi watercolors available to see. And when I tell you that they were lifelike and everything earlier, I mean, they're beautiful. You can tell why they consider her to be an amazing naturalist. And honestly, living in, rural Idaho over here on the West Coast, it was like being transported to another place looking at them, because we don't have fungi that grows like that. We don't have mushrooms that look like that here. And it was beautiful. So I would definitely recommend taking a peek at things online, just because it's a beautiful part of history. Like, I know that if I ever get to travel to Europe, that's officially on my stop list. I mean, they've also got a lot of other really cool works on there as well. But I thought that it would be fun for you guys to experience that. So without further ado, we are going to do our tale of Benjamin Bunny, and then stay tuned afterward for our analysis. Before our book reading begins, I just wanted to take a minute to say this book is a snapshot of the past. This book may contain negative views and or treatment of people and cultures. This was wrong then, and it is wrong now. Instead of blacklisting these novels, let's recognize the influence and learn from it. For as the philosopher George Santayana said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Let's learn from the past to create a more inclusive future together. The Tale of Benjamin Bunny. One morning a little rabbit sat on a bank. He pricked his ears and listened to the trit-trot of a pony. A gig was coming along the road. It was driven by Mr. McGregor, and beside him sat Mrs. McGregor in her best bonnet. As soon as they had passed, little Benjamin Bunny slid down into the road and set off, with a hop, skip, and a jump, to call upon his relations who lived in the wood at the back of Mr. McGregor's garden. That wood was full of rabbit holes, and in the neatest, sandiest hole of all lived Benjamin's aunt and his cousins, Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. Old Mrs. Rabbit was a widow. She earned her living by knitting rabbit wool mittens and muffetees. I once bought a pair at a bazaar. She also sold herbs and rosemary tea and rabbit tobacco, which is what we call lavender. Little Benjamin did not very much want to see his aunt. He came round the back of the fir tree and nearly tumbled upon the top of his cousin Peter. Peter was sitting by himself. He looked poorly and was dressed in a red cotton pocket handkerchief. "Peter," said little Benjamin in a whisper, "who has got your clothes?" Peter replied, "The scarecrow in Mr. McGregor's garden," and described how he had been chased about the garden and had dropped his shoes and coat. Little Benjamin sat down beside his cousin and assured him that Mr. McGregor had gone out in a gig, and Mrs. McGregor also, and certainly for the day because she was wearing her best bonnet. Peter said he hoped that it would rain. At this point, old Mrs. Rabbit's voice was heard inside the rabbit hole calling, "Cottontail! Cottontail! Fetch some more chamomile!" Peter said he thought he might feel better if he went for a walk. They went away, hand in hand, and got upon the flat top of the wall at the bottom of the wood. From here they looked down into Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter's coat and shoes were plainly to be seen upon the scarecrow, topped with an old tam-o'-shanter of Mr. McGregor's. Little Benjamin said, "It spoils people's clothes to squeeze under a gate. The proper way to get in is to climb down a pear tree." Peter fell down head first. But it was of no consequence, as the bed below was newly raked and quite soft. It had been sown with lettuces. They left a great many odd little footmarks all over the bed, especially little Benjamin, who was wearing clogs. Little Benjamin said that the first thing to be done was to get back Peter's clothes, in order that they might be able to use the pocket handkerchief. They took them off the scarecrow. There had been rain during the night, there was water in the shoes, and the coat was somewhat shrunk. Benjamin tried on the tam-o'-shanter, but it was too big for him. Then he suggested that they should fill the pocket handkerchief with onions as a little present for his aunt. Peter did not seem to be enjoying himself. He kept hearing noises. Benjamin, on the contrary, was perfectly at home, and ate a lettuce leaf. He said that he was in the habit of coming to the garden with his father to get lettuces for their Sunday dinner. The name of little Benjamin's papa was old Mr. Benjamin Bunny. The lettuces certainly were very fine. Peter did not eat anything. He said he should like to go home. Presently he dropped half the onions. Little Benjamin said that it was not possible to get back up the pear tree with a load of vegetables. He led the way boldly towards the other end of the garden. They went along a little walk on planks under a sunny red brick wall. The mice sat on their doorsteps, cracking cherry stones. They winked at Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin Bunny. Presently Peter let the pocket handkerchief go again. They got amongst flower pots and frames and tubs. Peter heard noises worse than ever. His eyes were as big as lollipops. He was a step or two in front of his cousin when he suddenly stopped. "This is what those little rabbits saw round that corner." Meow. Little Benjamin took one look, and then, in half a minute, less than no time, he hid himself and Peter and the onions underneath a large basket. The cat got up and stretched herself, and came and sniffed at the basket. Perhaps she liked the smell of onions. Anyway, she sat down upon the top of the basket. She sat there for 5 hours. I cannot draw you a picture of Peter and Benjamin underneath the basket, because it was quite dark and because the smell of onions was fearful. It made Peter Rabbit and little Benjamin cry. The sun got round behind the wood, and it was quite late in the afternoon, but still the cat sat upon the basket. At length there was a pitter-patter, pitter-patter, and some bits of mortar fell from the wall above. The cat looked up and saw old Mr. Benjamin Bunny prancing along the top of the wall of the upper terrace. He was smoking a pipe of rabbit tobacco and had a little switch in his hand. He was looking for his son. Old Mr. Bunny had no opinion whatever of cats. He took a tremendous jump off the top of the wall onto the top of the cat and cuffed it off the basket and kicked it into the greenhouse, scratching off a handful of fur. The cat was too surprised to scratch back. When old Mr. Bunny had driven the cat into the greenhouse, he locked the door. Then he came back to the basket and took out his son Benjamin by the ears and whipped him with the little switch. Then he took out his nephew Peter. Then he took out the handkerchief of onions and marched out of the garden. When Mr. McGregor returned about half an hour later, he observed several things which perplexed him. It looked as though some person had been walking all over the garden in a pair of clogs. Only the footmarks were too ridiculously little. Also, he could not understand how the cat could have managed to shut herself up inside the greenhouse, locking the door upon the outside. When Peter got home, his mother forgave him, because she was so glad to see that he had found his shoes and coat. Cottontail and Peter folded up the pocket handkerchief, and old Mrs. Rabbit strung up the onions and hung them from the kitchen ceiling, with the bunches of herbs and the rabbit tobacco. The end. Wasn't that fun? So, The Tale of Benjamin Bunny was published in 1904, and it was added to Project Gutenberg in 2004. So if you want to take a peek at the story for free, not having to go out and buy it, you can go to the Gutenberg website and pull it up, and it does have scannings of the artwork for you to see, which helps to enhance the story. So, the Tale of Benjamin Bunny, on the state side anyway, it isn't as well known as the Tale of Peter Rabbit today. I grew up with most of her tales, like there's a couple of them that I've never heard of and I'm very excited to experience them. But my husband, if you don't recall from last time, he had no idea that Peter Rabbit was even a book. And he was absolutely flabbergasted when I showed him that she had many little tales. I believe it's like 23 or 24. But don't quote me on that right now because I'm not looking at the list. Benjamin Bunny. This tale is such a fun story, and like the rest of Potter's little books, it's actually illustrated by her and has also been translated into over 35 languages. So this allows people from all over the world to enjoy her works, to enjoy these stories, to help their children with their imagination, and to experience the new. What do you mean new? But when you think about it from a child's point of view, everything is new. Everything is magical. It's got this sense of wonder to it, and her stories help to capture that and show it. And in the analysis of her story, because it's whimsical, it's fun, it's just, got that tinge of just imagination to help a child just grow and feel confident exploring the world around them. But what she also does in her story, just like with Peter Rabbit, is it again shows the consequences of disobeying your parents, of breaking the rules. So let's dig into that. Benjamin is young, enthusiastic, he's brave, he has no sense of fear. In fact, when he went to go see his cousins, he made a point of avoiding his aunt. This tells you that he is up to no good. Because I don't know about you, but if I went to go see my cousin and I avoided my aunt, I know that I would probably be getting into trouble. Or at least hoping that I didn't get caught. Joke's on me, we did get caught. Maybe not every time, but most of the time. Now, Peter in this story, he's different from the first book. In this one, he's more meek, he's scared, he had nearly died the last time he went into McGregor's garden, and so he's afraid to go near it. He's afraid to spend any time there. Whereas, when you look at it, Benjamin is confident. When they are in that garden, he's eating and insisting on gathering gifts for his aunt, whereas Peter is all business. He gets his jacket and his shoes, and he's ready to get out of there. He doesn't want to collect anything extra. He just wants to leave. He wants to leave with his fur. So they're going, and they're following Benjamin's lead of gathering gifts, and, Benjamin's eating. Peter's not. Peter's terrified. But Benjamin's eating as they go along and making sure that they have those gifts for his aunt for when they get home. Peter's jumping at everything and dropping half those onions here and there. And they round the corner and they see the cat. Now, because I am an audio-only podcast, I hope everyone was okay with the creative liberty that I took with the meow, just so that everyone knew that it was a cat when they rounded that corner. Because in the story, she put it as it relies on the pictures when she writes her stories. And so there was no way for me to just leave that blank for that pause and have you guys understand that there was a cat. So I added a meow just to kind of help fill in that void. And so, about that cat. So cats are natural predators for rabbits. We all know this. But in the story, the cat represents the problems that can happen when you break the rules. In the case of them, it could have been a fatal mistake of breaking the rules. Or a very, very painful one. Because the cat's saliva can actually cause an infection for rabbits. I raised them because in my long, interesting, weird life, I also was on a small farmstead, I guess we'll call it. I had a stepdad who thought that he could be a farmer / rancher / everything. And so he got all these animals that he didn't actually know anything about, and we ended up being the ones who had to do the research as young teenagers to try and help make sure they got the best care that they could get. And so we had to keep our cats separate because we didn't want to risk any infections and things happening to our rabbits. And so our cat is representing what can happen, the consequences of breaking the rules. And so when the cat jumps onto the basket, she's patient. She's waiting for her prey. And this helps to exhibit that your problems aren't just going to go away by ignoring them or by hiding from them. Which is a very important lesson for children to learn, but in a fun way. Because I know that, if we were just like, oh, this is the lesson and hammered it in, my son wouldn't enjoy it. At least with these stories, he's able to, giggle at the fun, enjoy the pictures, and then have that takeaway of, I should listen to mom. And he's still naughty. He still does things, don't get me wrong. But he at least has a moment where he hesitates and he's like, should I follow the rules? Before he makes the decision. And then you have our character, Mr. Benjamin Bunny Sr. coming into play. And I love that they made sure that you knew that Benjamin Bunny is named after his father. It was a very common practice back then. I don't know. I mean, there are some families that I know today where they name their children after their fathers. It is less common, but it still happens. And so he comes into the scene and he represents parental authority. We all caught that. We all knew that. And so he goes and he rescues Benjamin and Peter. He runs off the cat. He locks her up in that greenhouse. He is fierce and angry. And so he punishes Benjamin because he knew that Benjamin was being naughty. Benjamin had mentioned that they come out to get lettuce for their Sunday dinners. My question is, does Benjamin Bunny Sr. really take his son, or does his son sneak out with the way that he was punished for being in McGregor's garden? And it could just be that he was being punished for being there without an adult, because it isn't safe. But I still kind of wonder if he was fibbing a little bit to Peter. Just because I have cousins, it was a thing. We would stretch the truth, is how we go about it, to each other. Just a little stretch. And so he helps to save them. And he helps to solidify that, you listen to your parents, because they can help you be safe. They can help you with your problems. And so something that I thought was really fun that she did in her story here is she describes lavender as rabbit tobacco. I thought that was really fun. And my husband, when he heard the story, he's like, "You can't give lavender to rabbits, can you?" And I was like, "I think you can. I swear we were able to do it." So I had to do a little bit of research, a little bit of looking into it. And I discovered that lavender is a safe snack for rabbits in small amounts. In fact, there's actually gardens. Well, yeah, there are gardens that are rabbit safe. But there's actually websites out there that are designed for people where they want to have rabbit safe gardens. And it's listed in there where they describe that it can be, a safe treat in small amounts. And in some ways that it can actually have calming effects on your rabbits. And I thought that was a really fun fact. I mean, not every rabbit is going to like lavender. Apparently, it's not the greatest eating when other people were describing it, but it can have those calming effects. It can be a great treat for them to, help mix things up. And so these are great stories for all parents with mischievous children because they can learn, hey, breaking the rules has consequences without you, having to be the hammer coming down on them. But it's also, a great way for them to be able to see you break the rules, you see the consequences right there. It's nice, it's very black and white within that way, but it's also got that important aspect of fun. I see so many parents talking about how their kids hate to read or they don't want to listen, and honestly, I think it's because we're all so tired and stressed out that we forgot that fun needs to be an option. Fun needs to be part of their childhood. And so I really, really hope that for you guys listening today that you take in that fun needs to be part of the reading, that fun needs to be part of the learning. Because yeah, it's not fun to deal out those consequences for your kids. I feel bad every time. Like my son, he actually was very naughty the other night. He was so tired, but he didn't want it. His tablet goes to bed at a certain time every night, guys. It goes to bed before he does, so then we can have an activity, and then we can get ready for bed, and then have reading time. And so he was melting down all over the place, and I was like, okay. So normally for him, because he is special needs and vocal nonverbal, normally to punish him, it doesn't make sense to yell or scream or hit him, any of that. That doesn't make sense. I'm not saying that hitting is okay, but I am saying that a spanking in moderation is okay. And so for him, what we normally do is we do timeout. We put our nose to the wall. When mommy's naughty, she does it too. And then we count to a specific number so that we're calm and we're able to talk about what had happened. Well, he was so upset and he was just melting everywhere. And so I gave him a choice. I was like, hey, we can either do timeout and count to 20, or you can choose a spanking. And guys, my son chose to be spanked. And I just said that spanking is okay in moderation. Now I have a confession. I have spanked my son, and he is about 8 years old now. Yeah, he just had a birthday. So he's 8. I keep wanting to tell everyone that he's still 7. Great mom award over here. But I have spanked him in his 8 years of life exactly, 3 times? Counting this one? Yeah. I am not a big believer in that kind of, it doesn't work for my son. And I'm not saying that I'm a gentle parent and he gets away with everything, because he does have punishments that work for him. But I was absolutely floored when he said spanking. And I was like, timeout or spanking? Spanking. So I had to swat his butt, and it hurt. It hurt me. And not in a physical hurt me, I'm not that parent. And so I'm not gonna say that people are doing wrong by doing it, but there's a time and a place. Like, my son, well, he's an eloper, is what they call it. He runs. He doesn't understand danger, and he just runs and runs and runs. He loves to run, or something scares him and he runs. And so when he was little, he actually opened the front door because I didn't know that my husband hadn't locked it on his way to work. And I was changing. I was in the other room changing. because it was bedtime, and my son ran outside. Oh no, this is back when my husband worked days, so this was in the morning, actually. Even worse, because everyone's leaving for work, just so that you have that image. And so he makes it outside because, again, my husband hadn't locked the door, and he was like, oh, I can get out. And he ran, and he was in the street playing with his friend Woody. That's his toy, Woody from Toy Story. And he was in the street, and I kid you not, he's running up and down the street. You know, because I heard the door, and I'm like, did I hear the door? And then I waited exactly 2 seconds, and he's out there in the street. I ran out after him. I was indecent. My poor neighbors got a show. My son is safe. Nothing bad happened. He was outside for maybe 10 seconds, 12 seconds. Because like I told you, I hesitated for exactly 2. I had this moment where I felt like my whole world stopped, and I panicked. It was the second time that I spanked him. And now that I think about it, I don't know if there was a third. But he has never tried to, I mean, he still tries to go outside, but he does stop and he does hesitate before leaving the door. He does. He's very good. He remembers what happened, and we actually had a whole conversation about it when I was calm enough to breathe. And I wasn't like frantically spanking him. Guys, it was you gotta stop and do this. Because he was upset because I was hauling his butt back inside. And again, I'm indecent. I mean, at least I had a shirt on, right? But yeah, not ideal, not recommended. And so it's a really good way to help children have that learning, have that fun. Coming back to our story. If you have any questions, like wondering more about Beatrix Potter's life, please drop a comment, send me a message. I would love to get you the answer next time. Now, don't forget to hit that like button so you can find me again later. Also, my Patreon patrons get access to everything first and exclusive content. Hope you learned something, and be kind today. Remember, in this crazy world of ours, we're all tired, we're all stressed, we're all pushed beyond our limits, and kindness and working together, this is how we're going to get through it. I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later.